待って待って。始める前に、一言。いいです。えあ、これ実は、テストプレイしてて2回目なんですよね。1回目もちゃんと時刻を合わせといたんですけど、まさかそのことを指摘されるとは。怖いな。ああ、その通りですね。なんすかこれ、怖いな。何怖い。Just Rally Bravo Ultra Doctor 日本語対応ありがたい。始めよう。スキップしちゃった。これ1回目もスキップしちゃったんだけど。ちょっと待って、もう一回やるわ。あれこうなっちゃうのね。仕切り直すわ。
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
"なんだこれ、デスクの前から離れたのに左クリックを押すとパソコンを叩く音が聞こえたりいろいろするな。常にこいつはキーボード持ち歩いてんのか。
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers. Stanley went around touching every little thing in the office, but it didn't make a single difference, nor did it advance the story in any way.
なんかこいつの言うとにしたくねえから無視しよう。ホラー系ではなさそうだな。
Stanley clicked on literally every single door in the office because he doesn't pick up well on cues from his environment. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
嫌です。
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
言い訳したな、今のは。いや、無理やりこじつけたな。まあいいや。
Yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed room. Stanley simply stood here, drinking it all in. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
よし。
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
ちょっと悪態ついてるやん。
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself. Now, I'm not asking for me, I'm asking for her. This is it, Stanley. Your chance to redeem yourself, to put your work aside, to let her back into your life. She's been waiting. That's her, Stanley. You need to be the one to do this, to reach out to her. If you can truly place your faith in another, then pick up the phone. As Stanley picked up the phone, a white light engulfed him, filling him not just with radiance, but with hope. Hope for a life reunited one... Wait. Oh, goodness. Stanley, did you just open the phone? No, that wasn't supposed to be a choice. How did you do that? You actually chose incorrectly? I didn't even know that was possible. Let me double check. No, it's definitely here, clear as day. Stanley picks up the phone. He's taken to his apartment where he finds his wife, and the two pledge themselves to one another. Music comes in, fade to white, roll credits. Not picking up the phone is actually somehow an incorrect course of action. How's that even possible? None of these decisions were supposed to mean anything. I don't understand. How on earth are you making meaningful choices? What did you... Did I just see... No, that's not possible. I can't believe it. How had I not noticed it sooner? You're not Stanley. You're a real person. I can't believe I was so mistaken. This is why you've been able to make correct and incorrect choices. And to think I've been letting you run around in this game for so long. If you'd made any more wrong choices, you might have negated it entirely. It's as though you completely ignored even the most basic safety protocol for real-world decision-making. Or did you not grasp the severity of the situation? Well, I won't have that kind of risk on my watch. I'm going to stop the game for a moment so we can educate you properly on safe decision-making in the real world. Please observe this helpful instructional video.
Choice. It's the best part of being a real person. But if used incorrectly, can also be the most dangerous. For example, in this scenario, a hypothetical real person named Rupert has a choice. He could invent a machine that eliminates food shortages across the world to make life better for all people. Or he could spend years of hard work forgetting how to read. Which choice would you make? Remember that unlike here, the real world makes sense, and at no time should you make a choice that does not conform to rational logic. If you find yourself speaking with a person who does not make sense, in all likelihood, that person is not real. Allow the person to finish their thought, then provide an excuse why you cannot continue talking. Turn to a partner and practice saying, "My goodness, is it 4:30? I'm supposed to be having a back, sack, and crack."
Practice.
Excellent. Making choices on a regular basis is the best part to a healthy decision-making process. Most medical professionals recommend making at least 8 choices per day. Do you make more than 8? Less? And finally, if you begin to wonder if your choices are actually meaningful and whether you'll ever make a significant contribution to the world, just remember that in the vast infiniteness of space, your thoughts and problems are materially insignificant, and the feeling should subside. At this time, your instructor will guide you in an exercise to test and reinforce the material covered in this video.
Welcome back. You may have noticed that this room has begun to deteriorate as a result of narrative contradiction. But not to worry. Now that you're properly informed on good decision-making, we're going to revisit a choice you made just a few minutes ago and see what the correct thing to do would have been. This way, please.
さすがに逆らえないか、これは。しょうがねえな。
Now that we know your choices are meaningful, we can't have you jumping off the platform and dying. Imagine the main character dying senselessly halfway through the story. That story would make no sense at all. We just need to get you home as soon as possible before the narrative contradiction gets any worse. Unfortunately, it seems this place is not well equipped to deal with reality. Almost there. You'll take the door on the left, back to the correct ending, the story will have resolution once again, and you'll be home free in the real world. Now remember, all you need to do is behave exactly as Stanley would. That means choosing responsibly and always putting the story first. I'm quite sure you'll be up to the task. Just follow my lead and you'll be fine. All right. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. No! Why did you do that? Quickly, hurry back in the other direction. Perhaps we're not too late.
うわ、なんか、変になってる。グッと見せかけて右。さすがに開かないわ。もう行くしかねえか。仕方ねえ。
It's ruined. I can't believe, after everything we talked about, that my story, you've destroyed my work. Why? For what? What did you get out of that? What did you think was so special about seeing the game undone, left here like so much garbage? It's worthless now. And what am I supposed to do? Even if there were a way to continue, would it be worth it? To know that my story is now incorrect? How can I go back to that? I can't erase that knowledge. I'll have to live with it forever, reliving its impossibility forever. I couldn't live that way. Is it better to shut the game down entirely? To willingly destroy all of my work? I don't know. What's the answer? What do I do? What do I do? What do I... No, I have to. I have to shut the game down. I have to. I have to.
なんだ。
I'm here. I'm still here. Here in this pile of rubbish. With you. You. Who thought you were so clever. Now look where we are. My entire game is destroyed. It was the only thing in the world that was mine, and you've run it into the ground. What, did you think that would be funny? You just had to see? Didn't I impress upon you how important it was to be like Stanley? He actually knows how to do what I tell him to. He understands that if I say to do something, there's a damn good reason for it. That thought hadn't even occurred to you, had it? That there's a world outside of you? You're a child. Oh, my story. If you'd just gone through the door on the left, you would have seen it. There was a whole underground facility. You would have destroyed it and been victorious. It would have been so perfect. I worked so hard on it. I tried so hard to make... behave exactly as Stanley would. That means choosing responsibly and always putting the story first. I'm quite sure you'll be up to the task. Just follow my lead and you'll be fine. All right. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Yahoo!
No! Why did you do that? Quickly, hurry back. Behave exactly as Stanley would. That means choosing responsibly and always putting the story first. I'm quite sure you'll be up to the task. Just follow my lead and you'll be fine. All right. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. No! Why did you do that? Quickly, hurry back. behave exactly as Stanley would.
永遠にループして
That
る。
means choosing responsibly and always putting the story first. I'm quite sure you'll be up to the task. Just follow my lead and you'll be fine. All right. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office. Stepping inside his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this, until he saw the door with a voice receiver next to it. Surely behind this door lay all the answers to his questions. And beyond all probability, he knew the passcode. He had seen it on his boss's computer just last week. Night Shark 115. Was this the code to open the door? Would it still work? There was only one way to find out. Stanley had been trained never to speak up, but now he would draw from within himself the courage to face the unknown. He drew a sharp breath and then spoke the code. Stanley spoke the code. Night Shark 115. He spoke it into the receiver, right there on the wall.
Night Shark 113.
I'm sorry, is there a problem? You didn't mishear me, did you? Please speak the code into the receiver. Otherwise we can't get on with the story. This is a crucial step.
Fuck.
Okay, fine, you're not gonna do it, but you know what? It's pretty humiliating to bring you this far, only for you to suddenly decide you have better things to do. I asked you for this one single thing, for your respect. The kind of respect Stanley shows for his choices. He knows what it means to take a story seriously. If you didn't want to see what I had to show you, then why did you come here? You had a choice, you know. You could have gone through the door on the right. You could have done whatever the hell you wanted over there. Why did you come this way? Speak. Say something to me. Explain yourself, you coward. You... When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
なんだ
Stanley? Hello? Are you... Is everything okay? Stanley, please. I need you to make a choice. I need you to walk through the door. Are you listening to me? Can you hear me? Is everything all right?
なんかエンディングになってる。
Stanley, this is important. The story needs you. It needs you to make a decision. It cannot exist without you. Do you understand me? Whatever choice you make is just fine. They're both correct. You cannot be wrong here. We can work together. I'll accept whatever you do. I simply need you to take that step forward, please. Choose. Do something. Anything. This is more important than you can ever know. I need this. The story needs it. So, you hear me? Are you there? Are you listening to this? Stanley, are you there? Okay. It's okay, I can wait. You need time to decide. Time to make sure your choice is correct. That is the best choice. That's all right. I'll wait for you to decide what's the right thing to do. Take as much time as you need.
うん。またあれ
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
今度は従ってみましょうか。もしかしたら今の裏エンディングだったかもしれない。
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office. But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss. Admitting he had left his post during work hours, he might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished. His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all. None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. I'm dreaming! He yelled. This is all a dream. Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground. Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay. Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black. This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy, this much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day. The very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
働かされた。何をしても殺されてしまうんですね。
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
しょうがない。進めてみましょう。
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
あれ？一緒やん。
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was being held from him? What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this. Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs. Trying to input anything on the device was useless, since he could never possibly know that the combination was 28. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway. Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long. Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility. Although this passageway had the word Escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, but of course Stanley thought better of it and realized he simply had too much to live for. Nope, still on board with death? The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track. At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death. As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. And so he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
"Farewell, Stanley," cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly. And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish? When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
なんか天の声が常にナレーションしてて、その声に従ったり従わなかったりするゲームらしいです。無視しまくってたら死にました、2回ぐらい。なんだこれ。これ、真のエンディングにたどり着いたのかしら。一回ちゃんと全部従ってみてもいいかな。
これ結構前からあるゲームです。
なんか、新しいゲームじゃない気がする。ちょっと前に出てて、それのデラックス版みたいな感じで出てて、それがセールになってて買ったって感じなんで、新しくはないんじゃないですか。なんか配信者結構やってた気がする。
昔実況動画で見たことある気がする。
ありますよね。
See how it's impossible for the player to do anything in this room. Perfect example of poor level design. Textbook mistake. It's the kind of thing you'd pick up on intuitively if you had even the most fundamental understanding of good and bad game design.
なんかもう、さっきのナレーション無視しまくったら、いきなりなんかよくわかんないエンディングに飛ばされて、まあもう3回目なんですけど。急に知らんババアのナレーションが。
いつきたん、ぶちゆわん。
シェコマさん遅いよ。こんばんは。これ終わったら今度全部従ってみます、逆に。何このミュージアムみたいなの。この世界はゲームだったみたいな感じなのかな。なんかこれ一回テストプレイしてて、
水風呂入ってたお。いつきたん。
いや、怖い。それで1回目になんかこれ、ゲームの中の時間を設定してくれって出てきたから、時間を生真面目に入力して、1回動作確認して、で閉じて、で今日やったら2回目に入力したんですけど、ちょっとそれはアーカイブ見てもらって、っていう感じになるんですけどね。そこら辺にもなんかリアクションが設定されてて、セリフも違うし、びっくりしました。2回目に入力するときのセリフわざわざ用意してるんかいと思って。まあ今のところ時刻を設定した影響が出てるとは思えないですけど、ゲームを始める前に設定したところでいじってくると思わなかったんで。
必殺、道のクトルネード。
それ何なんすか？怖いんすけど。小林さんのグループ通話が突然始まって突然終わるぐらい怖いんですけど。なんだ？このゲームの設定資料集ミュージアムみたいな感じ。
これは何するゲーム？
選択肢を無視するゲームですね。無視してきて、ここの選択肢の影響がこの進行に関わってくるんですけど、おそらくこれ新エンディングに買ってんじゃないかな。僕やってまだ30分しか経ってないですけども、新エンディング迎えそうですわ。2つエンディング見てるんですよ。
道のクトルネードを味わえるのはあと半年だけ。
どういうことあれか。ちょっと YouTube でコメントしにくいことを言うなよ。そこ詳しく俺が話したらアウトだろ。これどうすんだろう。なんかズンダモンの声で、その点が、その都道府県に何件ずつあるのかランキングみたいの動画さっきチラって見たんですけど、群馬県1件もないんですね。悲しいですね。山形県も
それはすまん。わらわら。
風俗店が1件もないらしいですよ。どうやって生きてるんですかね。どうやって生きてるんですか聞きたいんですけど。なきゃやってらんないと思うんですけど。ねえ。やっぱ一番多いのは東京とかで、次、どこだったっけかな神奈川だったかな神奈川、川崎とかが結構多いから、それでもまあ100何件とかだったから意外と少ねえなとは思ってましたけど。3位か4位がなんか意外と熊本県。3位が確か大阪だった気がする。なんか意外と4位が
ないことはないぞ。
でも一件もないって言ってましたよ。それ群馬じゃないんじゃないですか、ギリギリ。ところでこれはどこに行けばいいんだ？とりあえずこれ一回エンディング迎えて、
レコパを返してだよ。
そんな人いるでしょうか？とりあえずパパッと終わらせて、全部言うこと聞いて やってみましょう、一回。あ、これっぽい。
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free. Can you see? Can you see how much they need one another? No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen. But listen to me. You can still save these two. You can stop the program
今
before
まで
they
たく
both
さん出
fail.
てきたじゃないか。
Push escape and press
かもしれない
There's
な。
no other way to beat this game. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path. Stop now and it'll be your only true choice. Whatever you do, choose it. Don't let time choose for you. Don't let...
あ、死んだ。あ、また戻った。またこっからか。これ最初なんですよ。
All of his co-workers were gone. What did it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
最初のムービーを今飛んでるんですけど、なんかこのパソコンのモニターに出てくる、
星の数ほどある。
指示で、まあ、
No matter how hard Stanley
M がを
looked,
何
he
秒
couldn't find a、
L を
trace
何
of
秒
his
ってすんごい
co-workers.
単純な、作業が、指示が来るやつを、ただひたすらボタンを押す仕事をこの人はしてたんですね。他の人だったらキー来るぐらいの単純な作業。で、ある日来たら、作業場に誰もいないと。どうなってんねんって言って今始まってるっていう。で、謎のナレーションが導こうとしてたんで、僕は無視してたんです。
Stanley came to a set of two open doors. He entered the door on his left.
これで右に入ってなんかいろいろやってたんですけど、なんかこのゲームが破壊されそうだったんで、一応従ってみようかなと。そこはアーカイブを見てください。
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office. Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. What could it mean? Stanley wondered aloud to nobody. He began wildly tearing through papers on the boss's desk, pulling books off the shelf, looking behind paintings, desperate for clues to his situation. But his attention was caught by a keypad behind the boss's desk. What could its purpose be? In fact, this keypad guarded the terrible secret that lay buried below his feet. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
「結構エンディングありそうですね、このゲーム。もう2つ別発見してるから最低でも3つはあるんだろうな。何回かに分けてやろうかと思ったけど、今日終わりそうですね。
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
で、さっきこれで左行ったら、押しつぶすやつに連れて行かれてっていう感じだったんで、ちょっとこっちに行きますか。マインドコントロールって書いてあるけど。
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
スタンリー愛されてるから。スタンリーちょっとバカなのかもしれないですね。同じ指示の仕事しかできないっていろいろ言われまくってたからさっき。
Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers, the lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
なんか壊れてる一箇所。フェイルドだ。2、3、4がぐちゃぐちゃになってる。
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No. He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never! It was unthinkable, wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof, the heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
ここでも従わないこともできると思うんですよね。破壊するマインドコントロールステータスオフライン。これマインドコントロールが解けて全員いなくなったんじゃない？気づいて。マインドコントロール、アイドルウェイティングと。なんかの原因でパソコン、マザーコンピューターが落ちたんじゃないでしょうか。なんかちっちゃく書いてある。
And when at last he found the source of the room's power, he knew it was his duty, his obligation, to put an end to this horrible place and to everything it stood for.
System power。これオンとオフでまた変わるんでしょ。で、今回は従おうか。オフ。
Blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes. He had won. He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command.
スタンリーは自分の意思で動いてるんでしょうか。
And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected
従ってるだけなんですけど。
on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him, for it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door.
今回は従ってやるか。
Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation. the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
これで終わり？ Beat the game. あれ？また戻ってきた。
Even now, Stanley's office was a distant memory. What did it look like? There was a computer, perhaps, and a painting. Was it a painting or a photo? He could no longer recall.
これ終わってねえな。これ多分全部回収しないと終わんねえパターンか。短いもんな、めっちゃ一つが。
従わないことを
When
楽し
Stanley
むゲー
came to
ム
a
か。
set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
例えばこれ右に行くと怒られるんです。
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
最初はなんかこんな感じでちょっとごまかすんですけど。
Wow. Yes, this room. What a beauty. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first
説明してる
open door
最
on
中
his
に。
left.
これでまっすぐ行くとまた違うんですけど、ちょっとこっち行ってないんで行きましょう、こっちに。
And so he detoured through the maintenance section, walked straight ahead to the opposite door, and got back on track.
嫌です。絶対従わない。これで行こうでした。これさらにまっすぐ進む選択肢もありますよね。
But Stanley didn't want to go back to the office. He wanted to wander about and get even further off track. So now in order to get back, he needed to go, from here it's, oh, no, it's to the right, my mistake.
開けろよ。
No, not the right. Why would I have ever said it was to the right? What was I thinking? It's clearly... Oh dear, would you hold on for a minute, please?
台本を漁るな、台本を。
Let's see, we went down, right, left, down, left, right. Yep, okay, yes. I've got it now. This story is absolutely, definitely this way.
右でも左でもねえじゃねえか。あれ？さっきのところにたどり着いてる。こいつ、どこにいてもタッチ音がするんですけど、これ、どういう仕様？常になんか、抱えてる？キーボード。
No. This isn't right at all. You're not supposed to be here yet. This is all a spoiler. Quick, Stanley, close your eyes. Okay. We just have to get back to, oh, who am I kidding? It's all rubbish now. The whole story completely unusable. How about rather than waste my time trying to salvage this nonsense, we'll just restart the game from the beginning. And this time, suppose we don't wander so far off track, Okay, from the top.
ああ、また戻された。
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
じゃあさっきのところまっすぐそのまま進んでみるか。
When Stanley... Wait, what? No, I restarted. I swear, I definitely restarted the game over, completely fresh. Everything should be...
あれ？
Oh, did something change?
なんか、ドアが。
Stanley, did you change anything when we were back in that room with all the monitors? Did you move the story somewhere or... Hold on. Why am I asking you? I'm the one who wrote the story. It was right here just a minute ago. I know for sure that it's here somewhere. Okay, then. It's an adventure. Come, Stanley.
選択肢が
Find the story.
増えた。父を右から行こう。なんだこの迷路みたいな場所。バックスルームみたいになってるけど。敵もなんか一体も出てこないからそういうゲームではない。ごめんなさい、小林さんのお望みの必殺技はないですね。いないかもしれません
I'll
が。
say it. This is the worst adventure I've ever been on. I can promise you there definitely was a story here before. Do we need to restart the game again? Well, I find it unlikely that we'll ever progress by starting over and over again, but it's got to be better than this. Okay, let's give it a shot. Why not?
あ、戻された。
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. Okay, yep, it's worse. I might be remembering this wrong. It's possible the
小林さん
story is
今
back
多分
where we
オクトラの
just came
編集してますよ。
Why don't we go back the other direction and see if we missed
あ、いた
anything?。
珍しい。あれ部屋、
Aha! I knew we'd miss something. The story. Here it comes. No, wait, never mind. Not the story. Okay, let's head back the other way and retrace our steps.
もうぐちゃぐちゃなんですけど。あれ
Now this... Well, I'll be honest, I don't recognize this place at all. Is this the story? I don't think so. I can't quite recall, but I believe my story took place in an office building. Is that correct? Do you remember, Stanley? But you know what? Since I've completely forgotten what we were supposed to be doing, how about this? You win! Congratulations! I know you put in a lot of hard work, and it really paid off, so good job.
今日はってもう9時ですけど。
I don't feel right about this at all. We both know you didn't put in any actual work for that win. Some people win fair and square, and this was not one of those situations. Okay, I'm getting weirded out by whatever this place is. I don't care what might happen this time. I have to restart.
何回リスタートさせんだよ、こいつ。
Right,
なん
I've
かも
got
う
a
書いてあ
solution.
るが。
This time, to make sure we don't get lost, I've employed the help of the Stanley Parable Adventure Line. Just follow the line. How simple is that?
シュールすぎるだろ、これ。
You see? The line knows where the story is. It's over in this direction. Onward, Stanley, to destiny. Though, here's a thought. Wouldn't wherever we end up be our destination, even if there's no story there? Or to put it another way, is the story of no destination still a story? Simply by the act of moving forward, are we implying a journey such that a destination is inevitably conjured into being via the very manifestation of the nature of life itself? Okay, Stanley, I need to follow this train of thought for a minute. Just stick with me. Now we can both agree that the nature of existence is in fact
俺が喋んなくてもこいつがずっと喋ってくれるからちょっと楽だわ、これ。
of that existence, right? Okay, now if my experience of your existence rests inside of your subjective experience of this office, is this office in fact the skeleton of my own relative experiential mental subjective
はい、戻ってきちゃったんですけ
Whoa,
ど。
whoa, 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 whoa.
戻ってきちゃった。
A bit weird back there? Well, I'd like to apologize. Not sure where I was going with all that. You know what? I think what we need right now is a bit of music to lighten the mood.
BGM うるせえ。 タラッタラ
Wait, cut the music. Go back and look at that fern.
何
Stanley, this fern will be very important later in the story.
何したっ
Make
け
sure you study it closely and remember it carefully. You won't want to miss anything.
お金よ石だって。俺見落としてた
Wait, what? We're back at the office? No. Line, you do know we're looking for the Stanley Parable, right? The story? Is any of this ringing a bell? No, not again, Line. How could you have done this to us? And after we trusted you. After everything we've been through, you... Oh, I can't take this anymore. To hell with it. Restart.
振り回されてばっかなんだけど。
You know what, Stanley? I say forget the adventure line. What's it ever done for us? We're intelligent people, right? Why can't we make up our own story? Something exciting, daring, mysterious. Ooh, this all sounds perfectly doable. Why don't we simply start wandering in, well, I don't know. How about this direction? Now, yes, this is exciting. Just me and Stanley forging a new path, a new story. Well, it could be anything. What do you want our story to be? Go wild. Use your imagination. Whatever it might be, Stanley, I'm ready for it. Oh, no, not you again. Stanley, I'd also like to veto the line from having any role in our awesome new story. No lines or monitor rooms. Just don't acknowledge it, and we should be fine.
なんだこの線は。
Ah, a choice. We get to make a decision. From here, the story is in our control. How important we mustn't squander the opportunity. In fact, I believe I need a minute to think here. Just walk in circles for a minute. Okay, so I know that each door has to lead somewhere, which means that somewhere at the place where we're trying to go, there must be a reverse door that leads here. And that in turn means that our destination corresponds with the counter-inverted reverse door's origin. So starting from the right, let us ask, will taking the right door lead us to where we're going? And since the answer is clearly yes, then by all accounts, the door on the right is the correct one. Another victory for logic. Come, Stanley, our destiny awaits.
わかった。いけねえのかよ。え
Oh, hold up, what's this? The confusion ending. You're telling me that's what this is? It's all one giant ending? And we're supposed to restart the game, what, eight times?
なんじゃ
That's really how all this goes? It's all determined? So now, according to the schedule, I restart again. Then what? Am I just supposed to forget?
スタンリーが死ぬってなってるけ
Well,
ど
what if I don't want to forget? My mind goes blank simply because it's written here on this thing, wall. Well, who consulted me? Why don't I get to decide? Why don't I get a say in all of this? Is it really? No, it can't be. I don't want it to be. I don't want the game to keep restarting. I don't want to forget what's going on. I don't want to be trapped like this. I won't restart the game. I won't do it. I won't do it. I won't do it. And the timer stopped? Does that mean did we quit? Did we break the cycle? The whatever it is that made this schedule? How would we even know? Will someone come for us? Will something happen?
小林さんが混乱エンドになってるじゃないですか。
I guess now we just wait. You know,
エルネル
I
イよ
suppose
り
in
は
some
ゲームして
way
る。
that this is a
そう
kind
で
of
すね。
story, wouldn't you agree? I'm not quite sure if we're in the destination or the journey, though they're always saying that life is about the journey and not the destination. So I hope that's where we are right now. We'll find out, won't we? Eventually. Well, in the meantime, if you...
なんだ？まさか。
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
あれ？
Oh,
新
new
コンテンツ？
content? What does that mean? New content.
もうナレーションも分かってないやん。ストーリーが。最初ストーリーがあるからそれに従わせようとめちゃくちゃ怒ってたのに、もうわけわかんなくなってる。
Hello, and thank you for playing the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. As you may know, the Stanley Parable was a video game released in 2013 on home computers. After receiving critical and commercial success, it was expanded upon in
これリアルな話じゃん。
with the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, a reimagining of the game for consoles and home computers.
あー、じゃあ2年前のゲームなんですね、これ。だから、
The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe features exciting new content that broadens and expands the world of the Stanley Parable, delighting audiences the world over.
めたいですね。
Please step inside and see what thrilling new adventures await in the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe.
これ通常版よりも多いんですよね、ボリュー
I'm
ム
very excited to see the thrilling new ultra
が。
deluxe
それがこれからやるやつじゃないかな。
Okay, so far it's an elevator. Nothing special yet, but I'm sure it's just the beginning of a mesmerizing adventure.
これボタンは？
Is it broken? What's going on here? Should we be moving somewhere or... Oh, there we go. All right, finally, at long last, it's on to the new content. I've never been more ready. Let's do it.
こっからが追加分です
I have
か。
to say, initial impressions of Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, mostly tedious. It's as if Oh, okay. Let's see the content. Give me the content, Stanley. All right. All right, let's see. It's the jump circle.
なんだ？
Is that it? Surely that's not all the new content. There has to be something else, right?
え？終わりっすか？
Goodness. Another elevator. Stanley, I have to say, initial impressions of this game are not positive. It's just elevators and jumping. Is this what passes for exciting new content? If this is new content, then I could just read you the whole dictionary. There's 20 hours of new content right there. Hell, I could count to 30 trillion. You could put that on the box. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, now with over 1,000 hours of new content. And oh, wait. There's more. Very good. Yes. I knew there had to be something else. Let's see it. I'm ready for whatever it is. That's it? Oh, you've got to be kidding me. You see, Stanley? This is what happens when greedy video game developers with no respect for their fan base rush a cheap expansion to market for no reason other than to make an easy dollar. And don't get me started on the level of craftsmanship that's gone into it. In fact, I'm looking right now at the game's achievements, and it's hard to believe one of them actually says Test achievement, please ignore. What quality assurance department signed off on this? I'm infuriated and I'm offended, and I intend to find these people on Twitter and hold them personally accountable. It's my fault, Stanley. I built up too much anticipation around the new content, I'm afraid. It could never have lived up to such expectations. If you're still with me, why don't we just reset the game, and we'll try to get back to what the Stanley Parable is really about. No frills, no gimmicks. Just you and me having a great time together like always. What do you say, friend?
終わりなのか。
いや、あるね、これは。また変わったね。いや、新コンテンツデラックスとか言っときながらこれだけかいっていうめたいネタの後にこれ本番始まっとるな。
Psst. Stanley, come over here. In the vent. I want to show you something.
無視していけるぞ、これ。行ってみるか。味方っぽいから。結構ボリュームありますね。1時間ぐらいで終わると思ってたんですけど。
Okay, you remember how cheap and unsatisfying the new Ultra Deluxe content turned out to be? Well, it got me thinking about the past, and how much better the Stanley Parable used to be. So I made something special and tucked it away here where the game's developers won't find it. Just our little secret. Take a look.
Wow.
I call it the Memory Zone. It's where I've been storing all my favorite memories so I can relive the peak experiences of my life whenever I want. Experiences like the launch of the Stanley Parable on PC. You see, Stanley, doesn't the Memory Zone remind you of how wonderful Stanley Parable was before it was sullied with a cheap re-release? Remember back in October of 2013, when the game originally launched? Back then, video games had integrity. Back then, it all meant something. Oh, the waste.
「時刻合わせたのに結局合ってないし。ああ、これあれか、2013のを表してるのね。小林さんの大好きなお花ですよ。ああ、もうこうやって曲流すとさ、また著作権の申し立てで。
And over here is where I keep reviews of the Stanley Parable. Like this stunning triumph of games journalism, 10 out of 10 from Destructoid.com. James Stephanie Sterling writes, and I quote, "Where so many games that aspire to be more than games end up less than any form of art, Stanley Parable strives and then succeeds to be every game ever created." Did you hear that, Stanley? Every game ever created. That's how grand and all-encompassing the original Stanley Parable was. It was literally every game ever created. It was Skyrim, it was Persona 3, it was all of them. And now, it's nothing. It's no games at all. It isn't even the Stanley Parable anymore. It's just a husk now. A lifeless husk with an hour of new elevator content. Here's another moving passage, this time from GameSpot.com. The Stanley Parable is both a richly stimulating commentary on the nature of choice in games and one that offers some of the most enjoyable, surprising, and rewarding choices I've ever been confronted with in a game. 9 out of 10. Don't you get it, Stanley? The game was perfect. It didn't need anything else. It didn't need new content. It just needed to be left alone, to spend the rest of time collecting dust in the hallowed hall of beloved video game memories. These were simpler times, Stanley. But I wouldn't give to go back, to have it all over again.
そんなにめちゃくちゃ売れたんでしょうか、このゲーム。それ大げさじゃないか。
Wait, hang on. I don't recall this part of the memory zone before. What's this? What's down here?
Oh?
Oh no. Oh God, no. Stanley, it's a collection of reviews from Steam, the online video game distributor. I haven't looked at these in years. I can't even imagine what's been collecting down here. Surely these reviews were glowing as well, weren't they?
ああ、低評価や。
Honestly, I could not be bothered to play this game to full completion. The narrator is obnoxious and unfunny, with his humor and dialogue proving to be more irritating than entertaining. Unfunny! I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to make a serious work of art. I suppose I could write up a handful of gags to insert into the Stanley Parable, but the game is already such a densely layered web of profound philosophical insights that I can't even imagine where I'd have the room to stick them.
なんかものすごいめたい発言しかしてないですけど。このゲームどんな評価をされてたんでしょう。
Okay, let's see what this one says. While the idea for the game is good, for someone who prefers non-linear games, this preachiness gets annoying fast. Preachy? Stanley? I'm not preachy, am I? You can tell me if I'm preachy. Honestly, you can. Oh, goodness. This is actually quite shocking for me. Well, to be honest, I had always thought of the game's dialogue as being rather terse to begin with. You can't know how much fluff I cut from the game to get it to feel as light and airy as it... Well, I always thought it did. But maybe it wasn't. Oh dear. What an awful memory to have to hold on to. These black marks on my otherwise unimpeachable track record. I feel like a failure. Like I let these people down. Perhaps the Stanley Parable isn't quite as sterling as I always remembered. What's this one got to say? You constantly have to stop doing anything so the narrator can catch up with his long-winded explanations of what's happening. I wish there was a skip button. A skip button? Well, yes. Yes, I think we can do that. If I'm truly too preachy, then maybe letting you skip ahead for just a moment, surely it couldn't hurt. Not if it means we can strike these negative reviews from the record. Only positive reviews of the Stanley Parable. That's my motto today, and it's always been my motto. I'd do anything for the customer, Stanley. Yes, a skip button we shall have. And here it is. Go ahead and give it a shot. Oh, you're back, you see. You were only frozen in time for a few minutes, but it was plenty of time for me to deliver a long, rambling monologue full of unnecessary verbal flurry. Well there, sport. You really did catch me rambling on a bit, didn't you? But that's the power of the button. The minute I start to go off on a thoughtless display of self-absorption, it... Okay, welcome back, Stanley. Now, I should say that the amount of time the button has been skipping through is becoming longer and longer. That last one was, well, I want to say maybe 30, 45... Stanley, please don't push the button again. It's been 12 hours. You've just been frozen there. I don't know why the skips are getting longer, but they're really, truly getting longer, and my God, there's no way out of the room. Oh, Stanley, you're back. You're back. Oh, my goodness. I have someone to talk to again. Stanley, I think it's been a week. Or 2 weeks. I've been sitting here all that time. Just sitting here. Not a single person to speak with. And you'd think that that's just how it's always been, right? Me talking... Oh, hello. It's you. You're here again. Welcome. I have had time to think about you and about us and about everything we've been through. I've had so much time. I stopped keeping track after a year. Have you ever sat down in one place and not moved for one entire year? Let me describe it for you. To begin with, there is only regret. There is only the turning wheel of missed opportunities. I felt nothing at all but regret for the longest time, Stanley. Days.
あれない。
何が何だかなんとなく。
わかりますか？お、ついてきてくれてますか？あれ消えないっすね。めんどくさいからスキップしましょう。
But they didn't understand the game was never meant to be funny. It was meant to have a point. It was meant to speak to the human condition. But where are the jokes? Where are the jokes? They bemoaned, they screamed, they gnashed their teeth and said, entertain us. It wasn't enough. They The end is never the end, is never the end, is never the end, is never the end. End is never the end, 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 is never the end.
気狂っちゃってる。何があった？これは外に出てったのかな？おしゃれですね。あれ？あれ、スキップボタンが。押せない。あれ？
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
急に戻ったが？お
Oh, good. You noticed my sign. Yes, I have something very exciting to show you.
さっきのは何エントなんでしょうか？ナレーターが悲しそうでしたけど。
You see, Stanley, I've been reflecting on the Stanley parable. and about how roundly disappointing this ultra deluxe version has turned out to be. The original Stanley Parable was a landmark, and any new content for it should live up to that legacy. So forget this ultra deluxe nonsense. I say we take it one step even further. Which is why I'm very proud to announce for the first time ever, the Stanley Parable 2.
2. Wow.
Yes, you see,
Just
it's
a
superior to
far
a measly
too.
re-release with a few minor additions. Think of all the new territory we'll cover with a fully fledged sequel. An entirely new experience, built from the ground up. Why, there are so many possibilities. It could go in so many different directions. This is what fans have truly been asking for.
はあ。急にでっかいオフィスに。
Calling it the Stanley Parable 2 is just so much catchier than Ultra Deluxe, don't you think? Ultra Deluxe? What does it even mean? But the Stanley Parable 2, now that's an artistic statement right there. It's future-oriented. It screams progress and innovation and long-term franchising potential. Now, to be clear, I haven't quite nailed down what exactly the Stanley Parable 2 is going to be, but let's take a look at some of the features I've been developing for it. I figure that if I can loosely organize a handful of interesting concepts, that surely the game will sort of naturally spring up around them. It'll all work itself out. Game development is much more of a fuzzy magic than anything scientific or logical, really.
一度入ると戻らないと。いよいよ小林さんじゃないですけど、僕もよくわかんなくなってきましたね、これ。どういう方向で終わらせようとしてるんでしょう、これ。もう小林さんは、この放送には、きっといないんでしょうが。いると信じて、話し続けます。
Here we are. Go on. Try out some of the new features. For the Stanley Parable 2, I asked myself, what do players really want? And of course, the first and most obvious answer is that they want to be individually recognized and validated as people. Sorry, I should have clarified. Right now, the button only says the name Jim. But of course, in the final game, this button will say your name, whatever name that is. Here, let's have you role-play as Jim to really simulate the full experience of this feature. Just play along. I promise you'll love it. Okay, here we go. Let's take a deep breath. Clear your mind. Forget whoever you are. And
一人一人が貴重なリスナーなんですよ。逃がすわけにはいかない。
Whoa, hold on. I haven't finished setting up the backstory. If you don't properly roleplay as Jim, then you'll never understand the impact of this button. Otherwise, it's just a stupid button that says somebody else's name. Okay, we're doing it again, and this time let me finish first. Now, allow yourself to become Jim. All right, fine, whatever. It's just a meaningless button that says Jim. Are you happy now? Get out of here. I'm done with this button. Why don't you go humiliate me in front of a different feature that I worked very hard on?
Too big. Too small. Just lie. 何の部屋だよ、ここ。ジムっていうボタンのためだけのこのクソでかい部屋なんなん？
Maybe I'll only let people named Jim play the Stanley Parable 2. They would appreciate what An epilogue would be fun, wouldn't it, Stanley? Yes, it would go at the end of the, well, we'll figure that out later.
なんなんだこれ。広いな。弦の穴。
Now here's something special. You remember that broken test achievement that got left in the game on accident? Well, I'm developing a technology to simply give you the achievement. Yes, you see, you're... Okay, perhaps I should have clarified. This is technology that will exist. Right now, the achievement is still fully broken. I'm not a wizard, Stanley, but I guarantee it will be fixed in the sequel to at last satisfy the hordes of ravenous fans all over the world who have been uproariously demanding this feature. Gamers, we hear you, and I promise it will happen. What else? What other exhibits haven't we seen yet?
探してんだよ。ん？おー、綺麗。
Ah, collectibles. Now it's a real video game. In the Stanley Parable 2, you'll run around gathering up these miniature Stanley figurines. And what's truly innovative is that there will be no reward for collecting all of them. I don't want to stifle the intrinsic joy of watching a number go up. You simply collect all of them, and then you move the hell on with your unremarkable life.
これ、あと5個集めなきゃいけないの。Collect them all.
God, it really is the worst when you collect everything in a video game and then they give you a big fancy reward for it. Absolutely tragic. You know what? Let's bring the jump circle back for Stanley Parable 2 as well. It's a... Oh, wait. You already spent all your jumps the first time we saw the jump circle?
全部やっちゃった。
Oh, well. I suppose it can just be a nice decorative piece then.
今日10時までの予定だったんですけど、次回に回そうかな。結構ボリュームありますね。多分最初の通常版の分はもう終わってんだけど、拡張分がかなりですね。だよな。あと5個集めるのかしら、結局。いや、でも集めないんじゃないかな、これ。集めるよっていう説明的な感じじゃない。リンゴあれだ、チャンピオン。入れない。あそこの階段行ってないな。
Stanley, here's an idea that I'm truly fond of. It's never been done before in a video game. This is, in fact, a hole that you can fall down forever. That's right. Infinite falling. You can fall until the end of time, if you like. A stunning leap forward for video games as a medium.
さっき見た階段のところが気になるんですけど。階段。あ、これか。弦の穴も気になるし。真のバケツも気になるな。
A common complaint of the Stanley Parable was that it was confusing and paradoxical, that it engendered a chaotic sense of reckless despair in those who played it. Well, I am happy to say that after much consideration, I've engineered a clever solution to this fundamental problem with the game. It's the Stanley Parable Reassurance Bucket. You see, Stanley, anytime you're holding the bucket, a sense of calm and ease will fill your mind and your heart. It's true. As long as you hold on to the bucket, the many disorienting contradictions of the Stanley Parable will feel perfectly normal and perhaps even comforting. You may even come to long for the gentle embrace of jarring cognitive dissonance while the bucket is in your arms. And to be honest, it's a much more convenient solution for me than actually redesigning the game to be less uncomfortable. Can you imagine what a pain in the ass that would be? Yes, the bucket is the...
ずっと喋ってんな。
Come on, give it a try. Can you feel it? The glow of comfort, even in the face of crushing despair, must already be sweeping through your body. And in fact, can I say that I do believe the bucket lends you an air of charisma as well? I think that just holding it has made you the slightest bit more attractive as a person. The benefits of the bucket seem to go on, don't they? All this and more await you in the Stanley Parable too.
Does
anyone give out awards for most enjoyable bucket in a video game? That really should be an award if it isn't already.
いらねえ、このバケツ。さっきのとこってここだっけ？ここじゃねえや。もう二人は寝られましたか？確認していますよ。
Okay, I'll be honest, I haven't yet decided on this one. I think that in the new version, the office could use a bit of decoration, like balloons. But I'm undecided on Get Well Someday and Happy 12th Birthday. Which would you go with?
何それ何それ
You know, sometimes when you solicit another person's opinion, it makes you realize that you knew which one you actually really wanted all along. Happy 12th birthday, step-niece, it is. Or actually, maybe I should have gone with... No, I've made my decision, we're moving on. Come now, you've already made your choice. It's true that you chose badly, but we all have to move on from our mistakes.
あった。無限の穴。これじゃねえよ。バケツじゃん。バケツいらないんですけど、これ。ちょっと自分が眠くなってきちゃったよ。早く終わらせたいですけど、これ曲いるかな。さっきの穴どこでしたっけ？あった。穴。
You see, isn't it wonderful? One of my more ingenious concoctions, if I do say so. Now then, since you've gotten to see the infinite hole, you can press the teleport button to pop back up to the top, and we can continue onward. Now, I don't mean to be a bummer, but I do recommend you use the teleport button to go back to the top. Maybe do it on the sooner rather than later spectrum of things. Okay, Stanley, I don't know quite how to say this tactfully, but it's possible that I slightly exaggerated the infinite nature of the hole. Is it a very, very deep hole? To be certain it is. It's an extremely deep hole. I don't want anyone to say that it isn't an astonishingly deep hole. It is. Is it infinite? Well, that sort of depends on your definition of infinity. From one perspective, the infinite is merely philosophical in nature. It's more of a... Okay, well, good for you. You found the bottom of the hole. You found me out, Stanley. I'm a liar and a cheat, and you're so clever. Look, I think the issue here is just that you're unusually fascinated by falling. What normal person actually wants to fall infinitely? I figured the hole was as deep as anyone would actually need. Don't you put this on me. Maybe you're the problem. Look, things got a little heated there. I think we both said some things we didn't mean. Why don't we just put all this behind us and agree to just call the whole mostly infinite?
こいつの話スキップしたいわ。
Then go ahead and
長
press
え。
the teleport button to warp up to the top of the hole and we can move on. I'll just be up here when you're ready. Great. Now, I'm very excited to show you even more of my ideas for the sequel.
ずっとバケツ持ってるエルボーカフ。
どうしましょうね、このバケツ。捨てらんないんですかね。しても、バケツ捨てらんないんですよ。これで全部見終わったと思うんですけど、終わらないですか、これ。別のゲームだと俺ずっと焼き芋持ってましたね。何なんでしょうね。スチームゲーの何かしら変なものを持たせるの。出ようぜ。出れねえじゃん。ここ行った？だか。さ、セーブできてるかがわかんないからさ、こんだけ長いやつを、もう一回やるってなったら俺絶対やらないから、怖くてね、終われないわ。今時のゲーム大体セーブ、オートセーブでしょうけど、このゲームどうかな？ただでさえなんかループしまくっててどっからやってんのかわかんないようなゲームだからセーブしてもわかんなくなりそうだね。バケツ、オフィスデコレーション。こいった、こいった。FF16 がやりたいです。さっき言ったわ。ここのバケツ戻したいです。戻らない。いらないのに。あー、ずいざ迷ったぞ。湧いてたりしない？わかんねえや。あれ一瞬一言も喋んなくなったけど。
See, if you'd only played along, that would have been your name, the button says. But no. Instead, oh, I can't even think about it. I'm taking the gym button away.
手に虫が。
どういうことだってばよ。
マジでこれどういうこと？終わらないんですけど。どういうこと？もう視聴者どころか僕も飽きてきてるんですけど、これ。 展開がなさすぎて。どこ行ってないんだ、あと。バケツ邪魔。こいつを集めるやつもしかしてやらないとダメ？ないけど。あ、出口。出れるなら出たい。
All right. Have you seen everything you wanted to? Ready to move on now?
やっと出れる。誰だよこいつ。
シャンナロ。
急に桜。なんか
So, Stanley, what do you think? Do you like all of the new features? Yes, I know it's not exactly clear yet how exactly these features will come together as one single coherent video game, but I can feel it in my soul. It's going to work. There's definitely a good game in there somewhere. Say, let's do an experiment. I'll arrange these new features together, and we'll see whether or not it coheres into a meaningful gameplay experience. Okay. Are you ready? Here it is. I give you the Stanley Parable 2. I mean, there's potential here, right? It's sort of... Okay, never mind. Hold on, let me do a different arrangement. Okay, yes, this is much better. I feel good about this. Here we go. Version 2. Who am I kidding, Stanley? This isn't a coherent video game at all. It's a lot of gags. And I do very much enjoy creating gags, but they don't add up to anything. I wanted more than anything to create a sequel that would capture all the magic of the first game. I wanted fans to love it. No matter how good these gags are, they won't stand on their own. They would need the structure and the gameplay of the original. Wait, maybe that's it. I can take the original Stanley Parable and simply, well, insert a few of my new features into it. Tastefully, of course. With respect. With care for the vision and integrity of the original game. Would it possibly work? I suppose it could. But it would need a really, really tremendous title screen. A title screen that says with bold and uncompromising conviction, "This is the Stanley Parable 2. Let me see if I can whip something up. All right, perfect. Go ahead. Take a look.
あ、なんだ急に。The Stanley Parable 2。はい、The Stanley Parable 2やっていきたいと思います。いや、待ってたんですよ、これ2が出るの。もうずっとね、もう2021年から出てきてたやつ、やっと出たんですよ、2が。早速始めたいと思いますね。
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple.He sat at his desk in room 427.
最初見たやつと一緒だぞ。
Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy.
全く一緒ですね。
And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened. This complete
微妙にさっきの風船が足されてる。
Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office. All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
いや、このバケツはいらないです。
Stanley felt the bucket calling to him, begging him to pick it up. Why was he not doing it?
いや、だっていらないから。しょうがねえ
Stanley
な。
picked up the bucket.
しょうがねえな。どう考えてもいらねえだろ、これ。出た。左行けっつってでし
Stanley
ょ。
clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door
分
on
かっ
his
た、いい
left.
もう従うよ。一緒なんですけど。ただバケツ持ってる
Still no one was here.
だけですけど。
Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was where he'd find answers. Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
もうバケツ持ってるぐらいしか変化ないんですけど。
You found one of them. One of the miniature Stanley figurines. Remember, no reward for collecting all of these, only the intrinsic pleasure of a job well done. You can't buy that sort of happiness, Stanley. God knows I've tried. So, I implore you to savor each and every moment you come across one of these beautiful figurines.
Money in the morning. Money in the evening. Money for breakfast. うわー、レクリスプ。浮いてるドアが明らかに。
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the weight of this revelation, Stanley may have broken down into an emotional dumpster fire if not for the soothing presence of the bucket. But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical.
バケツにそんな感情はないよ。なんだこれ。バケツ持って。
Another miniature Stanley figurine. This, you know, there really must be a snappier name for these things. What about mini Stan? Stanley figurines.
バケツくん主人公みたいになってますが。
Stanlerines. Yes, I think I like that. Another Stanlerine under your belt.
名前が今決まった。無限の穴と、ジームって呼ぶボタンは、一体どこにあるでしょうか。
The elevator raced downward, plummeting towards an unknown fate. It would be all Stanley could do to keep himself together, if not for the bucket. Soothing him, comforting him, reassuring that in this darkest moment of uncertainty, he would be all right. The bucket is here for you, Stanley. Everything will be fine.
バケツ物語や。
Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility. Lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley and the bucket both wondered to themselves.
バケツは何も思わねえよ。バケツ要素いらねえ。
The monitors jumped to life, and Stanley nearly dropped the bucket in shock.
落とせ落とせ。
Everyone in the office was being videotaped, monitored like guinea pigs. The bucket had never seen anything like this, and it very nearly burst into tears as Stanley cradled it gently, reassuring it that everything would be fine.
知らねえよ。バケツの感情表現なんか興味ねえわ。
Was the bucket under the mind control facility's influence as well? Had the bucket been told to do things it didn't wish to do? What kinds of things does a bucket want to do or not want to do in the first place? These questions raced furiously in Stanley's feeble mind. No! He screamed into the bucket. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control, never! He squeezed the bucket tighter. His one friend in the entire world. At this point, he could trust no one except for the bucket.
悲しい人だね。
But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy, or sad, or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again... But at the last second, the bucket jumped in and pressed the button to turn on the controls. Stanley gasped in horror. Had this been the bucket's plan all along? To take over the machine and claim the power for itself? How could the bucket have betrayed him like this? Stanley was prepared to throw the bucket away in disgust when suddenly an image appeared upon the enormous screen. Birds. Silly, silly birds. The control buttons became active again.
なんだよこれ。
Stanley flipped through one video of silly birds after another, and then it dawned on him.
かわいい。
This wasn't a mind control facility at all. It was a facility for monitoring and surveilling silly birds all over the world. The mind controls were only a facade to disguise its true intentions. Had the bucket known this all along? Stanley marveled at the metal genius in his hands, the one who had pointed him towards this incredible
し
discovery.
かも結構種類があるのが笑うんだけど、これ。もう全然同じのが出てこない。あ、ペンギンや。
In this place, flipping through live streams of the silliest birds imaginable. Of all the possible paths his life could have taken, this one was surely the best. And Stanley was happy.
なんだ終わりあはは。
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it
あの
mean?
ボタンオフにしなきゃダ
Stanley
メ。い
decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he
Oh.
had simply missed a memo.
やでも今のオンにしてちょっと癒されたな。バケツいらねえんだわ。バケツ無視しよう。
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
これ、なんか元へ戻ってないこれ。
トリエンド。
まさかのトリエンディングちょっと変わってるな、ここ。
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
で、これ下行ってもいいんですけど、無限に選択肢が出てきちゃうから。そう、ここ実は行ってないね。着いた。あれ一緒やんけ。パンダに 銃口を突きつけている謎の謎の画像が。あ、これもしかして連打しすぎ？全然移動しねえわ。意味ないからもうさっさと行きます。
The moment he entered his manager's office, Stanley froze in his tracks. Not a living soul anywhere. Stanley was in such a rush to get through the story as quickly as possible, he didn't even have a single minute to just let the narrator talk. That kind of anxiety isn't healthy, so he relaxed for a few moments with some calming new age music.
ちょっとまた変わったぞ。
Feeling soothed and rejuvenated, Stanley calmly walked forward into the opened passageway.
この制御装置をオフにして終わらせよう。てか、
なんだこれは。
マジで、これはもう小林さんじゃなくてもなんだこれはですね。もう訳がわからないです。もう2要素どこ行ったんだよっていう。私もさっぱりわかりません、もう。これ追加要素なくなってない？もう。
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself.
自分も寝たいです。選択肢が多すぎてイライラしてきました。
Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building. Stanley's co-workers, the lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing. This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No. He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never.
バケツ持ってないとフラグ開始できないとか。
Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world?
そんなにバケツ重要だった。
The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all. blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes. He had won. He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the
あれこれ
machine's
一周目なの戻ってる
What
な。
other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him. For it was not knowledge
なん
or
でしょう
even
ね。さっきから
power that he had been seeking.
何かしらの変化はあったけど、今回は全く
Perhaps
変
his
化なかっ
goal
た。
had not been to understand, but to let go.
こっちに来
No
ない
longer would anyone tell him where to
方にある
go,
のかな。
what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his.
弦の穴とか
That was
も
all
回収して
he
ない。
needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door.
仕切り直そうかな、違う日に。でももうちょっとで終わりそうですよね。こ
Stanley
れ
felt the cool breeze upon his skin,
あ、やっぱでも変わってるわ。こんな画面じゃなかった。
the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
謎のタッチ音が。これで終わりなのかね。The end is never って書いてある。あれまだ終わってない。
Someone was following Stanley. He was sure of it. If he checked over his shoulder now, he would surely catch them. It was only a matter of time.
誰もかけてきてないよ。バケツもないね。ある。
Stanley lifted the bucket into his arms, and a wave of comfort rushed over him. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Was this better than the... No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
No,
Said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Go there. Good.
Said the bucket.
Now ride the lift all the way to the top. There's something up there I need you to do.
But Stanley feared that any path he walked might lead to the separation of himself and the bucket, his dearest friend. So he threw himself to his death, that they might die in one another's arms. How deeply touching.
バケツと真珠エンドですね。
The meeting room. Yes, that's where everyone would be. Stanley just needed to get to the meeting room. The confusion and the chaos all seemed to melt away
微妙に
as
セリが変わっと
Stanley
る。
embraced the bucket. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his... This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Was no, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go, and so the two of them detoured through the maintenance section and walked straight ahead to the opposite door.
ああ、ここに繋がってんのね。
Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office. But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe He thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. He looked down at the bucket in his arms. Am I crazy? He asked the bucket. The bucket returned his gaze, but said nothing at all. That's strange, Stanley.
あらゆるところにバケツのセリフが追加されてるけど、それで2って。
He held the bucket close, yet felt none of its familiar reassurance and comfort. And that's when Stanley realized, this isn't my bucket. It's just a normal, everyday bucket. Someone else's bucket, perhaps. How did I end up with someone else's bucket? This is all terribly wrong. Surely no good would come from this. Who knows what sorts of bizarre hallucinations Stanley might experience without the psychologically grounding presence of his bucket. And indeed, now he noticed that the rooms were repeating, which was, of course, very odd. And now he felt himself floating off the ground. Oh, gracious, he exclaimed. Without my bucket, I've gone truly mad. Where is it? I must find it. Far off in the distance now, he heard it, calling to him.
Stanley! Stanley, it's me! The bucket!
Could it truly be? He rushed forward from room to room, passing by one bucket after the next. None of them were his. None of them were his special bucket.
Come to me, Stanley! Find me!
He had to find the bucket. He had to return to his old friend. It was the only way to truly restore his sanity. And then suddenly, he froze dead in his tracks. He knew where the voice of the bucket had been coming from. The real bucket was inside of him all along. It was incredibly painful. Stanley doubled over in agony and blacked out.
これさ、エンディングすごいあるわ。
This is the story of a woman named
死
Mariella.
ぬほどあるよ、これ。
Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, picked up her bucket of comfort and security, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted
さっき見たよ。
by the
これで終わりなのかななんか中途半端な気がするんですけど。すんごいエンディングある。なんか1個2個じゃない。10個20個あるこれ。
一体何が終わりなのか。
そう、どれのエンディングでちゃんとした終わりになるのかわかんないですね。2に変わってるけど。わかんないな、これ。ちょっと調べておこうかな。ただこれぶっちゃけエンディング集見た方がいいかもしれない。かなり多いですね、これ。なるほどね。結構面白かったっすね。終わらせていいのかな、ここで。なんか今、攻略サイト見ようとしたんですけど、エンディングをできるだけ見つけるまで見ないでください。バケツのためにそれをしてくださいって書いてある。なんだこれ。バケツなんなの本当に。で、一番最初の何にもしないときに、なんかね、バーコードを読み上げるみたいなやつがあるんですけど、そこもね、自分ちゃんとやってないんですよね。まあいいや、ちょっと今日この辺でやめときましょう。ちょっと続きやるかわかんないですけど、おそらくまだエンディングはある。なんか釈然としませんが、ちょっと、続きやるかわかんないです。ちょっと、でもマジでよくわからないですね。 でも楽しみました。それでは、締めの挨拶といきましょ
難しいゲームだ。
う。ある意味ですね。前原義雄さん。